A note of warning. This podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime Daily, the podcast, bringing you high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country for the week of June 14th, 2019. I'm Billy Jensen, and this is Owen Michael.
Hello.
This week, a woman fights back hard when her neighbor attacks her in her house in the middle of the night in Niagara Falls, New York. A mother of three is accused of shooting her boyfriend to death after he was falling out with a cult in a dispute over her in Pennsylvania. And a new social media app helps capture an accused pedophile who also happens to be a California cop. But first, the years-long unsolved murder of a family of four finally sees some resolution this week when a business associate is convicted in Southern California. Owen, the McStay family, it's been a mystery for so long, one of the biggest true crime mysteries. Tell us what's going on.
A lot of people were wondering about this for a long time. This is a true mystery out of Southern California. Joseph and Summer McStay were raising their two sons, ages 3 and 4 years old, in Fallbrook, California, about 50 miles north of San Diego, in a new house that they had just moved into. Joseph McStay ran a business making and selling custom water fountains, the big decorative variety for houses and landscapes, not the drinking fountain kind. Clients included Paul Mitchell hair salons and wealthy homeowners in Saudi Arabia, among others. Then Joseph and Summer McStay and their young sons, Joe Jr. and Gianni, vanished from their home in February of 2010. All four of their bodies were found 3 years later in November 2013 in the Mojave Desert outside Victorville, California, which is north of Los Angeles, and about 100 miles away from their Fallbrook home. An off-roading motorcyclist found their skeletal remains in shallow graves. Authorities found a rusty sledgehammer buried with Summer McStay's body. Investigators determined the sledgehammer was used to kill all four family members. 40-year-old Joseph McStay's skull was shattered. He was found with an extension cord around his neck. Summer, 43, was killed by a blow to the jaw, which broke it into two pieces. The 3 and 4-year-old boys both had skull fractures.
So the McStays were last seen on February 4, 2010. There were bowls of uneaten popcorn in their house. Groceries were left on the kitchen counter. There were no signs of struggle or forced entry. Their dogs were alone in the yard. 4 days later, the family's Isuzu Trooper was found parked at a shopping center at the Mexican border, about an hour and a half south of their house. It had been abandoned and was towed away. Surveillance video showed the Trooper driving away from the McStay residence about 8 p.m. the night of February 4th, 2010. So theories about the family's disappearance ran rampant at the time, with some speculating that the family was mixed up in drug smuggling and had been forced to flee, or had been punished by a drug cartel, and among all these other wild explanations. There were sightings of the family reported in Indiana, Montana, Baja, Mexico. A search of the family's computer revealed an internet search for, quote, what documents do children need for traveling to Mexico? Customs and Border Patrol video of crowds of people crossing the border at the port of entry showed a couple with two small boys crossing into Mexico shortly after the family disappeared. The FBI took over the investigation, believing the family had left the country. Joseph McStay's mother traveled to remote villages in Mexico to search for the family, and she also took out ads in Mexican newspapers. Then their bodies were found in the desert, and one part of the mystery was solved.
62-year-old Charles Merritt, a welder, was a business associate of Joseph McStay. They had known each other for about 3 years when the McStays went missing. Charles Merritt told San Diego County investigators that he had been with Joseph McStay on the day that he had disappeared. He said they had met at a Chick-fil-A to talk about a pending business project. Prosecutors say there's no evidence that lunch meeting ever happened. Merritt told the Daily Mail in an interview after the family's disappearance that Joseph McStay was his best friend. But prosecutors say that 3 days before the McStays disappeared, Joseph McStay had emailed Charles Merritt, demanding Merritt pay him $42,000 that he owed him for a job that he had messed up. McStay reportedly was unhappy with Merritt's ongoing work performance and was taking steps to separate Merritt from the business. Prosecutors also say Merritt had been forging checks to himself from McStay's company account after the family had disappeared. He was backdating the checks to February 4th, the day that they were last heard from. Merritt said that he had been trying to keep their shared business affairs afloat in McStay's absence.
So you start seeing all of this evidence, and hindsight is always going to be 20/20. Excuse me. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people, when they're watching a true crime program, and this this has been on television a lot. They're saying, well, why can't they just find the guy? Why can't they just find the guy? It's obvious from all of this trail of evidence that they were on him. Mm-hmm. They were on him. They were just building up a case and watching over him. Mm-hmm. Of course, the danger in that is that, the person might potentially flee. I don't know if they had him on surveillance 24/7. Probably not. But soon investigators discovered that Merritt's cell phone had pinged towers near the McStay house in Fallbrook on the day they disappeared back in 2010. And hours later, his cell phone had pinged off a cell tower in the Mojave Desert, near where the bodies were found 3 years later. Charles Merritt had once lived in Apple Valley, California, just 7 miles from Victorville, both desert towns near where the bodies in the case were found. Investigators say Merritt's DNA was found on the Isuzu Trooper's steering wheel. Charles Merritt was arrested in November 2014 and charged with 4 counts of murder. San Diego County detectives noted that Merritt had referred to Joseph McStay in the past tense when they talked to him in the days after the disappearance. Prosecutors said Merritt's cell phone contained an internet search for how to change one's identity. So,
when's the last time you searched that?
Yeah. You know what? I've searched it for work.
Yeah. Right.
Phone records show McStay's phone called Merritt's phone 7 times on the day of the disappearance. So he's probably... This was the come to Jesus meeting, I would say. Merritt's attorneys say McStay wouldn't have called repeatedly if he had just fired the man. Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, they said Merritt had been in the trooper before, so the DNA was not incriminating. That's the defense. Merritt's defense attorneys maintain the evidence presented at trial was all circumstantial. It did not prove their client murdered the family.
So the trial lasted 4 months. The jury deliberated for about a week before the verdict was announced on Monday. Guilty on 4 counts of murder with special circumstances. Prosecutors have alleged possible jury tampering in the case as well. The court found out that 2 alternate jurors had been approached by a member of Merritt's defense team after deliberations had already begun. That defense team member told the judge that he had asked the alternates whether they would agree to be interviewed for a future documentary about the case. That team member was subsequently banned from the courthouse by the judge. Didn't buy that.
So, yeah.
Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty in this case. The jury will decide on Merritt's fate in the next phase of the trial, which begins next week. The judge has said he will talk to the jury about the concern over tampering when they resume.
Yeah. And that's, whenever you get into jury tampering, in his appeal, he could go back and say, my defense was incompetent because they tried to tamper, and that affected the entire thing, even though they were alternate jurors. And he can actually use that potentially for an appeal. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, obviously, they presented all of this mountain of evidence, but the circumstantial stuff, you're right. There may be grounds for an appeal here, especially with the tampering thing as a technical element. But it's definitely fits all the pieces. And boy, especially here in Southern California, there was a lot of what the heck?
Yeah.
This family just
having a whole family disappear and vanish just doesn't normally happen. So
yeah.
So if you have comments or questions about the show or this case, call us up and leave a message at 888-548-9758. We'd love to hear from you in your own voice. Call us up and we'll run your comment or question on the air. But first, we're going to get to a Niagara Falls case. 25-year-old Michael Siskowick was arraigned this week, charged with raping a woman and keeping her chained up in his house in the city of Niagara Falls, New York. Siskowick is accused of abducting the unidentified woman from her home nearby and forcing her into his basement. He and the woman live in the same neighborhood, just a few doors down from each other. Niagara Falls police say the unidentified woman answered a knock at her door at about 1 a.m. early Sunday. Police say Siskowick attacked her in the doorway. She fought back. There was a pretty big fight. She's pretty tough. She fought back, said a Niagara Falls police detective investigating the case. The broken glass from her door, she wanted to make sure that I knew that was from his head. Wow, that's a badass. But Siskowick allegedly then coerced the woman with a loaded shotgun. He allegedly dragged her down an alley several houses away to his residence, where he took her downstairs and bound her. Police say he later took her upstairs to a bedroom where he chained her to a bed and raped her, court documents say.
So police responded to the woman's residence after receiving a report of a woman being assaulted there that early morning. A neighbor reportedly witnessed the incident and even verbally confronted the suspect, who would then threaten the witness, according to the Niagara Gazette. That witness called police. The attacker and victim were gone by the time officers arrived, but broken glass and blood were found at the scene. Hours later, neighbors reportedly contacted family members about the large police presence at the woman's home. Family members then went to the home and found her phone, purse, wallet, and keys still inside. They went to police and reported her missing. At about 1 p.m. Sunday, roughly 12 hours after the incident, a bloodhound tracked a blood trail in the back alley straight to a nearby house about a quarter of a mile away. Officers heard the woman inside screaming. They breached the back door and found her downstairs in the basement, chained by her ankles, with her wrists taped together with a sock in her mouth. They freed her and removed her from the scene. Police believed Siskowick was still in the house. A SWAT team arrived and a 12-hour standoff ensued. Finally, police fired tear gas into the home, but they discovered the suspect was gone. The abducted woman was hospitalized for treatment and was released on Monday. She reportedly had 3 broken bones in her hand, a broken cheek and a broken orbital bone, a broken nose, a cracked tooth, and cuts to her face, according to the Buffalo News.
Yeah, and that's your worst nightmare, answering the door. You know, somebody, he might have used a ruse, might have said, I'm in trouble or something like that. You're trying to be good. You open the door, and then you're attacked, taken, and then enslaved.
What do they say? Nothing good ever happens after midnight?
No.
You know?
Police launched, it's usually 2 a.m., but police launched a manhunt for Michael Siskowick. He was captured about 24 hours later at 7:30 p.m. Monday in an area of trees and industrial section of the city about a mile away from the crime scene. A motive for the attack was unclear. I think we get the motive. The guy's just a total asshole, allegedly. He may have done some yard work for her, said the Niagara Falls police superintendent. Police say the woman doesn't know him personally, but recognized him enough from the neighborhood to answer the door at that hour. He's been charged with kidnapping, burglary, rape, assault, and menacing. He pleaded not guilty to the charges on Tuesday. He remains held without bail. And he had been charged with burglary at least 3 times over the last decade prior to this case. So we don't know if you take a look at Joseph James DeAngelo, who started from the Golden State Killer. He started as a peeping Tom looking in the windows. Then he started going inside and burglarizing, and then he started sexually assaulting. So there's a pattern that this guy was probably following as well.
Escalation.
Yep. Apparently, he has a history of mental illness, according to his defense attorney, including a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia when he was a teen. His father told reporters he may have been using synthetic marijuana recently.
Bad combination.
Yeah.
That stuff is bad, especially if you are diagnosed with something like that. It's unclear whether the man was taking his medications. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you'd like to follow us, subscribe to our weekly drop on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. We have new stories every Friday. Subscribe. For our next case, we're going to Pennsylvania. Barbara Rodgers is a 42-year-old woman from Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania, about 30 miles southeast of Scranton. She's the mother of 3 children and reportedly served in the military for a time. She's just been sentenced to 15 to 40 years in prison this week for third-degree murder. Early on the morning of July 15th, 2017, Barbara Rodgers dialed 911 and told the operator she had shot her boyfriend, 32-year-old Stephen Mineo. Rodgers claimed Mineo had held a gun to his forehead, grabbed her hands, and told her or forced her to pull the trigger. In their shared apartment, responding officers found Mineo dead from a .45 caliber gunshot to the forehead with a star pattern from contact burn on his skin. They arrest Barbara Rodgers on the spot for his murder. Rodgers told police that she and Stephen Mineo had gone to a bar earlier the night before, and had several drinks together, claimed they were not intoxicated when they left, and they returned home around 2 a.m. She said Mineo suggested they go out into the woods behind their apartment and shoot off his gun for fun. Rodgers also claimed that Mineo had been upset lately, and particularly on that night, about his relationship with a group known as Sherry Shriner, what police call a cult, which is named after the woman who founded it.
So the Sherry Shriner group follows an elaborate conspiracy theory about an alliance of zombies and reptilian aliens, among other evil elements, who are working to end the world. Sherry Shriner, the woman, said she was a Christian following the Bible, particularly the book of Revelation, and claimed she was descended from King David. On her website, she had a GoFundMe account that reportedly raised about $125,000 to make, quote, organ blasters. Hockey puck-sized lumps of a combination of quartz, copper, aluminum, and fiberglass that repel zombies and keep chemtrails off of your home. There's even a video tutorial with a recipe to make your own organ blaster in muffin tins at home.
Helpful.
Okay, so Sherry Shriner and some of her followers had apparently read a Facebook post written by Barbara Rodgers in which she described her love for steak tartare, which is a rare raw beef dish. She had posted pictures of the food, including raw meat. Rodgers said she craved raw meat all the time. That was proof to Shriner that Barbara Rodgers was herself, quote, a reptilian. And she warned Stephen Mineo that his girlfriend was possessed by a reptilian, saying that she had, quote, the vampire demon in her. Those are the only people who crave raw meat, Shriner said. It's popular. It doesn't make me a reptile, Rodgers later said, defending herself in a YouTube video she made with Stephen Mineo. A lot of people eat that.
It's true.
Barbara Rodgers said Mineo then began to suspect that Sherry Shriner was the real reptilian. Mineo talked about it in a series of YouTube videos he recorded before his death, claiming he was exposing her. So he was switching it around. He was changing the plot.
He got it.
In his last video, Mineo talks about how Shriner's cult followers began to harass him and Rodgers. 4 days after that last video, Mineo is dead.
Days after that, in a post on her website, Sherry Shriner wrote, quotes, I warned Steve Mineo she was a vampire witch reptilian super soldier, and now he's dead because he wouldn't listen. The criminal complaint against Barbara Rodgers reads, quotes, no signs of injury were observed anywhere on her person. Upon further questioning, the defendant related that she killed the victim because he wanted her to kill him. Barbara Rodgers told police she didn't know the gun was loaded when she pulled the trigger, called the shooting an accident. I was not in control of the situation that happened, Rodgers told reporters this week. I was not the dominating party in that situation. In court, she read a statement saying she was very sorry and that she had planned a life with Mineo. The Pennsylvania jury deliberated for 9 hours, then convicted Rodgers of third-degree murder, no intent to kill. Prosecutors had asked for the maximum penalty of 20 to 40 years, but with her military service, her motherhood, and no prior criminal record, the judge sentenced her to 15 to 40 years. Mineo's family and the prosecutors were not happy with the shorter sentence. Rodgers' attorney says they will appeal the case. Sherry Shriner, by the way, died in 2018, less than a year after Stephen Mineo, reportedly of natural causes.
Reportedly. Wow. That's a crazy one.
A lot of stuff going on there.
A lot of stuff going on there. But this one might even be more interesting. About 3 weeks ago, Snapchat launched a new thing, which is called a gender change filter. And a lot of people have been playing with it. There's 2 new selections. You choose an avatar logo with made-up eyes with lashes or the one with the purple beard, and you make sure the camera's facing your face and you take a picture. Now, the filter overlays, otherwise known as augmented reality, effects onto your facial features to make you appear more like the gender you selected. The female filter adds lipstick and blush to the face, long hair smooths the skin. The male filter adds a square jawline and facial hair, dials back the lashes and the hair in the frame. The effect has been quite popular since it was launched. You can go to, especially when it was launched the first week, you can go to any patio bar in Los Angeles. You saw people playing with it all the time. Now, Ethan, a college student in Northern California who doesn't want his last name to be revealed, talked to KNTV NBC Bay Area this week about how he took a picture of himself using the filter to make him appear to be a young woman, and made a Tinder profile using that altered photo, posing as a 19-year-old female. Ethan was on a mission. He said a female friend of his was molested as a child, which prompted him to go online in a bid to identify pedophilia suspects. So Ethan became Esther on Tinder in May. He got a message right away from a man who asked him if he was, quote, down to have some fun tonight. Ethan said he then exchanged messages with the man on a different app, on Kik, where he told the man that he, or rather Esther, was actually only 16 years old. And would this bother the man? The man indicated that it would not bother him, according to screenshots of the conversation that Ethan later provided to the police.
It got a lot more explicit, Ethan told KNTV. The texting moved over to Snapchat, where they repeatedly kept texting each other for the next 12 hours, with this man allegedly trying to engage in sexual activity, undeterred that his target was only 16. Ethan said he repeatedly told the man that, quote, she was 16. Ethan then sent screenshots of the conversation to the Silicon Valley Crime Stoppers tip line. Through clues in the conversation, Ethan apparently realized he was talking to a cop and confirmed his suspicion after doing some research. After a 3-week investigation, San Jose police arrested 40-year-old Robert Davies, an officer with the San Mateo Police Department in the San Francisco Bay Area. Davies has since been placed on administrative leave. He is charged with contacting a minor to commit a felony and was held on $50,000 bond. Police said that during the conversations, quotes, he was off duty in another county.
Yeah, they always try to say that. He wasn't doing this
Wasn't
while
here.
he was on the clock.
It's not on the clock, exactly.
Yeah.
San Jose police spokesman said this week, quotes, whether or not the person is 16 is irrelevant. If the suspect believes it's the 16-year-old on the other end, the suspect should have terminated that conversation. Full stop.
Yes.
Police referred to Ethan as a, quotes, concerned citizen. Ethan says he's hanging up the Esther ruse for now. I was just looking to get someone. He just turned out to be a cop, said Ethan.
Wow. So we've seen a lot of that from To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen, from some of the Tetrad Core. A lot of there's a few guys that have YouTube channels. One of those guys in England that sets up these dates, and then the guys come and then they shoot.
Yeah,
video
and
of them.
it's a little controversial because, I mean, on the one hand, they're doing some setups here, but on the other hand, there's a little element of vigilantism here, as well as if you're doing this outside the auspices of law enforcement, you may be putting yourself in danger.
I think that's the biggest thing, is the danger part of it, because if a guy, I mean, think about it. If this guy did show up, if he was one of the YouTube guys,
right,
and was going to film
meetings.
him right there and be really confrontational, because if you've seen that, it's just like, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, nothing. It's like, I know who you are. Look at my text messages. He pulls out a gun. You don't know what's going to happen. So,
or even these are trained professionals. When you're dealing with law enforcement that are doing that, they do not give away clues, or if there are any clues that they're giving away, they're on purpose. But a civilian may accidentally reveal where they are, or there may be, you don't know how sophisticated you're dealing with as far as somebody who can trace digital fingerprints and things like that. So,
but bottom line, he got one creep off the streets, and a creep that actually is supposed to be protecting people. So,
as the police said, it's not illegal for it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's on the other party here.
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that they weren't, I've seen some police departments just completely try to shut down.
Oh, they scold.
They just said he was a concerned citizen, and that was a good way to do it, I think, So we get your comments. We get a lot of comments.
We do get comments.
Thousands and thousands of comments. True Crime Daily is the largest true crime Facebook page and YouTube channel. So we get a lot of comments.
And we read just about all of them.
We read just about all of them, to our detriment, and
did you find any interesting ones this week?
To our therapist's delight, when you're reading comments.
We share a therapist.
Yeah, we do.
Together.
We do. No, we don't. Yes. This one, South Carolina mom speaks out after arrest for confronting son's classmates over bullying. She says...
what was that all about?
All right. She says she also cursed out her son's teacher and principal. A police report obtained by CNN confirms the account. So... She went to there was a bunch of apparent bullies, 8 and 9-year-old boys and girls, and she didn't quite know which ones they were, so she kind of just a blanket statement. But she said that she did go to the authorities in the school, tried to handle it that way. They didn't do anything. The bullying continued. And she kept going. So now the district communications director told CNN in an email, the appropriate reaction to unhappiness with a school response is to have a conversation with the adults in charge. Well, I believe she did try to have that. So our viewers and listeners, I think it was probably 99% were on this mom's side. LaBelle L. said, a mother I'm proud of. I know for a fact that they won't try to bully any other classmates for a while. Namaste to that mother. Lauren A. says she has my support. Chantel R. proud of that mom. She woke up the teacher and principal, and hopefully they will take action to finally stop her son's bullying. James C. did say, in my opinion, confronting bullying is a good thing. However, this woman went about it in the wrong way. There was just a lot of people defending this woman, though. Jessica L. said, see me in one of these news posts in a couple of years. If, God forbid, my daughter is bullied, they will be held to pay. Either the school does something or I will, all in all uppercase.
We hear a lot of these. We actually hear fairly periodically about these stories about a parent who's gone and either sort of flipped out at some kids on a school bus or maybe on the school grounds, going there to stick up for the kid. Generally, I mean, who knows how often this is actually happening. We hear these high-profile things, but generally most people are pretty supportive of this. However, I do see the other end of this is like you're an adult. Yelling at kids is never a good look. Trying to scare kids into treating your kid better is probably not going to work out for the kid in the long run. But what do you do? I mean, I'm not a parent. I presume you never went to a school.
Well,
and
yeah,
yelled at some
I
children.
actually, it was a weird story, and I just thought about this just now. I didn't even think about this for my book. I got slapped in the face by a camp counselor once. And I went home and I told my dad. My dad went to the camp and met with the guy and said, if you ever touch my son again, I will kill you. I've been to jail. I will kill you. That was my dad. So
that was a different time. That was
a different time. It was a little bit early 80s, but still it was a little rough. But yeah, I just remember that story. But as far as bullying goes, I was bullied, being like a tall, skinny kid that was trying to play sports and was awful at it until I found hockey. I would definitely, I was bullied a lot.
Yeah, well, bullying really didn't come into the national conversation before the last decade or two. Really after Columbine is when the profile raised.
I think you might be kind of right, yeah.
But so be careful out there, people.
Yeah, all right. But people are hailing this woman as a hero. Now, another case that people are calling legislators a hero, and some are not agreeing with it. Alabama governor signs bill to chemically castrate child molesters. Republican Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed a bill into law Monday that requires someone convicted of a sex offense against a child under the age of 13 to begin chemical castration a month before being released from custody. Chemical castration involves administering medication via tablets or injection to take away sexual interest and make it impossible for a person to perform sexual acts. If the person stops taking the drug, the effects can actually be reversed. According to the law, if a given offender chooses to stop receiving the treatment, they will be in violation of parole and forced to be returned to custody. This one got a little nuts. Oh, my God. I can't believe I freaking just said that. That was awful. I really didn't mean it.
We're not striking that from the record.
Oh, my God.
You're going to live with that.
All right. It's because it says it right here. Tim J. said, just cut their nuts out, cheaper.
We do have a warning at the top of the podcast, so try not to be offended.
But one person said, 22T said, what kind of KKK shit is this? Who made this governor God? Shame on Alabama. And then people were just like, you're against chemically castrating child rapists? And he says, yes, I'm against this kind of punishment. You shouldn't take away this part of a man. It just went on and on. But for the most part, Regina C. said, I support the movement. Ellen P. said, just cut it off. But Tanya W. did say something interesting. People say chop it off. Y'all do realize women rape children also. I'm for this law. Just make sure the person is guilty. Too many innocent people being accused and in prison.
All good points.
All good points.
Generally, in our comments and at large, people have the least amount of sympathy. In other words, less than zero for child attackers or child molesters or anything like that. So this one's going to be a crowd pleaser. It does, you sort of have the libertarian debate about whether the state has the right to do this to a person's body and that kind of stuff. But, this is overwhelmingly supported across the country.
Our viewers on, we definitely have crossover. We have 3 million Facebook followers. We have 3 million YouTube followers. They're not all the same, though. So I'd be interested to see if you guys on YouTube put stuff in comments. So I'd be interested to see what the YouTube family thinks versus the Facebook family. And remember, YouTube is different because YouTube, you can be anonymous, and Facebook, for the most part, is not anonymous unless somebody created up
the last time we brought this up, in fact, some of our YouTube commenters took offense that they thought that we were denigrating them compared to the Facebook people, but we weren't.
We weren't. We're just identifying that it's different, and the main thing that's different is that it's anonymous.
Indeed. But prove us either wrong or right or whatever you like.
That's right.
Chime in. Leave us a comment in the YouTube section.
That's right.
There if you can.
Check out our content on YouTube and Facebook and truecrimedaily.com. And don't forget to download our weekly podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. Also, if you have comments or questions about the show, call us up and leave a message at 888-548-9758. We'd love to hear from you in your own voice, but be advised, your recording may be aired in any of our future podcasts, which is the whole reason for doing it. So until next week, this is True Crime Daily, the podcast, reminding you,
don't do crimes.
See you next week.